Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly fascinating, a concept that's literally going to change how you look at the world around you. We're exploring a very specific, incredibly gripping kind of existential horror. We are looking at the architecture of the trap we call modern life. We're talking about Franz Kafka. This is a writer who didn't invent some terrifying alternate dimension. Instead, he just held a mirror right up to our own. So settle in, because we're about to unravel the systems of power, bureaucracy, and absolute absurdity that govern us all. Now, I want you to really think about this for a second. What if reality itself was the nightmare? Just picture waking up in a dark room. The walls are ordinary, your furniture is exactly where you left it, but something is fundamentally, terrifyingly wrong. You walk through a door and it just leads to another identical door. Kafka masterfully captured this specific type of dread. It's that creeping realization that the world operates on rules you absolutely cannot understand, under systems you cannot escape, passing down judgments that you simply can't explain. And here is the absolutely crucial point that sets this apart from your typical horror story. Kafka's brand of terror strips away all the traditional dramatic tropes. We're not talking about bad dreams. We're not talking about monsters hiding under the bed. There are zero supernatural events. No ghosts, no alien invasions. And it's not even about the visceral horror of wars. In Kafka's world, nothing dramatic actually needs to happen for you to feel utterly terrified. Section 1. The Nightmare of the Ordinary. When normalcy becomes horror. Okay, let's dive into this. The true terror in Kafka's writing isn't actually what happens to you, it's how entirely normal everything feels while it's happening. The people around you just accept the madness like it's another Tuesday. Which brings us to a word you've probably heard thrown around a lot, Kafkaesque. But what does that actually mean? Well, it's an absurd reality where normal systems, endless repetition, and bureaucracy become inescapable sources of helplessness and psychological horror. Just picture standing in a line that never ever moves. Imagine endless hallways of identical doors, or faceless officials stamping papers for reasons they literally won't explain. It's that feeling of being a tiny, powerless cog in a massive, unfeeling machine that doesn't even know why it's running. That is Kafkaesque. Section 2. The Trial of Existence, Judged Without a Crime. To see how this builds in practice, let's look at his famous novel, The Trial. This is where we explore what it means to be judged without a crime, a concept that really taps into our deepest psychological confusion. So a man is arrested one morning, but here's the catch. He's never told what the crime actually is. There's no explanation provided, there is no evidence presented, and there is absolutely no escape. He's thrown into this labyrinth of shadowy courts and dusty attics, facing judges who aren't really judges, and doors that only open into more locked doors. The real tension here comes from this rhythmic, endless denial of basic logic. Notice the profound contrast here between the human mind and the bureaucratic machine. The protagonist's only goal is to just understand the system. He assumes, naturally, that there must be a rational reason for his guilt, right? Like a simple mistake that can be cleared up with some logic. But the system itself is designed to remain completely unreadable and illogical. Kafka reveals a truly terrifying idea here. Sometimes the system doesn't malfunction when it punishes the innocent. Sometimes guilt exists entirely without reason, simply because the system demands it. Section 3. The Metamorphosis of Value, the Fragility of Identity. Now, what's really interesting about this next story is how it explores a totally different angle of existential dread. In the Metamorphosis, Gregor Samsa wakes up one morning transformed into a giant insect. Now, that sounds like a classic monster story, right? But the true horror isn't the physical transformation. The true horror is the reaction. His family doesn't go on some epic quest to save him. Instead, Gregor immediately becomes an unnecessary burden. He becomes a problem. He's just a disgusting thing to be swept into a bedroom and hidden away from the neighbors. And this brings us to an incredibly uncomfortable realization. Human value is so fragile in modern life. The very moment Gregor could no longer go to work, the second he stopped being an economic provider, his humanity was completely revoked by the people closest to him. It's kind of like a dark joke. You turn into a horrific giant bug, and your family's first thought is, wait, how's he going to pay the rent? I mean, imagine modern HR handling that today. Kafka uses this surreal transformation to force us to ask ourselves, are we only valued for what we produce? If you strip away your utility to the system, what is actually left of your identity? It's a profoundly isolating thought. Section 4. Why Kafka is Dangerous, the Architecture of the Trap.
we really need to talk about why Kafka is considered philosophically dangerous. Reading his work makes us uneasy for a very specific reason. It maps perfectly onto our own reality. Let's walk through this rigid, step-by-step process of modern life exactly as Kafka saw it. Step 1. Obey the incomprehensible system. We fill out the forms, we stand in the lines, we follow rules we definitely didn't write. Step 2. Search for meaning inside the structure. We try our best to find logic or fairness or some grand plan in our careers and societal roles. And then, the devastating step 3. Realize the structure never promised meaning in the first place. It's just a completely illogical loop. We are running as fast as we possibly can, but we're staying in the exact same place, watched by invisible eyes behind glass walls.
And this brilliantly illustrates why his work resonates so deeply. Kafka exposes the nightmare already built into reality. He is dangerous precisely because he reveals a truth we spend most of our lives trying to ignore. The systems we live under, these invisible structures of power, are often entirely incomprehensible. He doesn't invent nightmares from scratch, He just forces us to open our eyes and actually look at the ones we've completely normalized.
Section 5. Kafka in the Digital Age, the Modern Mirror.
Now, you might be thinking, well, Kafka wrote about dusty offices and typewriters like 100 years ago. What does this have to do with me today? The parallels are honestly staggering. In Kafka's era, the terror came from faceless officials denying your requests. In our modern digital age, we have algorithms, unseen code dictating what we see, who gets hired, and whose voices are actually heard. Kafka wrote about endless hallways of doors leading nowhere. Today, we have the infinite scroll and the relentless stacking of push notifications that keep us totally trapped in our screens. His characters drowned in endless paperwork, we drown in flooding emails and broken online forms that just lead to automated error messages. The mechanism changed, sure, but the helplessness is exactly the same.
Kafka is not the past. Kafka is right now. We're still waiting for replies from customer service bots that never come. I mean, come on, we've all been trapped in that automated loop, desperately pressing 0 trying to speak to a human, right? We are still living under algorithmic systems that no one, not even their creators, fully understands. We really like to think we've progressed into this sleek, modern, liberated world, but the reality is, we may have simply entered Kafka's world, just with better lighting and higher resolution screens.
Section 6. The Nightmare Without Exit, a Dream You Cannot Escape. Let's look at the ultimate takeaway from Kafka's vision. Many writers throughout history have described dreams, right? Giving us these temporary escapes into fantasy or surrealism. But Kafka did something entirely different. He described waking life as a dream you cannot escape. Once you understand Kafka, once you truly see the absurdity of the bureaucracy, the fragility of your societal value, and the invisible algorithms governing your choices, the world just looks different. So the next time you find yourself stuck in an endless automated phone menu or filling out a form that makes absolutely no logical sense just to prove you exist, ask yourself, are you sure you were ever awake at all? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and I'll get you next time.